everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma231 here, back in data about Weekly Shonen Jump, issue number 21 of 2025. And Shonen Jump, I read a lot of Shonen Jump this week. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Of course, as you can see here on the screen, we have 16 series to talk about today, which is like, I think the most series that I have read all of this year. Yeah, 15's been the most of last year, or this previous year. And we had 16 a few times last year. I mean, the very beginning of the year. And honestly, I don't know if we ever reached 16. You know, we had 16 for 2 weeks there, right? Whenever a bunch of series were starting in the towards the end of the year. But normally, I don't read 16 series like it's looking like it's going to be happening this week. I mean, I already read them, so it's like, I know what's happened. But we really just have a lot of good issues to Jump to talk about, and a lot of sort of like mediocre small things too. And we also have a brand new series starting this week and a series ending. Of course, Astro Royale has met the end of its run, and we also have a series called Nice Prison that has also started. I will be getting to all of those and my thoughts on them as we get to them in the video, but this is just going to be a long one in general, even if I don't go through and like talk about all of the various manga. 16 series is still going to take a long time to talk about. So really, if you guys don't know how this series works, it's actually pretty simple. I'm just going to be sitting down here and rambling on about all of these 16 series that I read in Jump this week. Pretty much just giving my thoughts on them. If I want to talk about longer, I will talk about longer, but just like, don't expect me to go on for like 20 minutes on, hey, this is the final chapter of Astro Royale. This is everything that happened. Isn't that so cool and interesting, right? So pretty much it's just going through that. And at the end of the video, we're going to go through and rank them from what I thought was the best series of the week all the way down to what I thought the worst series of the week was, and all of the other 14 spots in between. And we also be picking my favorite character of the week. Is like, hey, who did I think just had a really cool moment in general, or who am I excited to see more of next time, pretty much. And honestly, there's a lot of good candidates for all of that sort of stuff too this week. But hey, without any further ado, let's just go and get started off with Kagurabachi. Of course, this is chapter number what? 76 of the series? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 76. But this is a very awesome chapter of Kagurabachi where we're pretty much sitting down and we are seeing all of this outcome of Hirohiko using the banquet ability of the Kumeyori. Going through, they use it. They eventually use another ability called Play, which pretty much animates inanimate objects pretty much. But only see Hirohiko uses corpses, and it's like, come on, dude. What are you absolutely doing here, right? But it's a pretty cool thing going through all of that. We pretty much see that Hirohiko is really messing with Samura's psyche, and it's really just affecting Samura to the point where, like, all he can think of is protecting his daughter, Iori. He goes through and ends up trying to protect her, but gets stabbed through by a bunch of swords here in a moment, and eventually reveals the final ability of his Enchanted Blade. Of course, all Enchanted Blades have 3 abilities. Samura has used Crow so far, which is like, hey, teleporting to all of the feathers to be able to go through and attack out, which of course is like, hey, the spiritual detector, or the spiritual pressure, or sort of whatever sensor. And then he's now revealed his move called Suzaku, which is pretty much like, hey, heal myself up using all of the rage and anger that I feel here in a moment. And the very end of the chapter is this just absolutely amazing panel that Kagurabachi loves to do, where like everything is shrouded in darkness, but there's just a little bit of illuminated light that's going through and like illuminating the scene here, as we see Samura just walking up towards Hirohiko, just saying like, oh, you're a lively one, you friggin' brat. That's enough out of you. And that is where we end this chapter of Kagurabachi on this just like absolutely incredible note. Great chapter of Kagurabachi for sure. One Piece is also a very straightforward chapter this week, as you pretty much feel like, hey, Gunko is on the ship where, of course, Usopp, Nami, Brook, Jinbei, and I think Colin, I think that's all of the people who are on this little bit of like Colin's pirate ship right now. We see that Gunko is coming through and is getting ready to attack all of these various people, pretty much because they are trying to get in the way of like helping all the other children get off of Elbaf, or not help out all the other children so they don't leave Elbaf, pretty much, right? And pretty much just go through, see all of this. Gunko uses all of her arrows, attacks, and it's really cool as we see all the Straw Hats trying to do a lot of things, but just Gunko is completely overpowering them. I really love Usopp and Nami both using their abilities, because like, hey, you normally don't see that, and like we're really just getting a lot of use of like all of the lot of really underutilized Straw Hats, and like, hey, we have Jinbei, Brook doing some stuff. It's also very interesting because, of course, we know that Gunko really likes Brook's music, and we see sort of she looks at Brook a few times in his moment. Still a bit of a fun thing there, right? But pretty much the whole idea is like, Gunko says like, hey, the countdown has begun, a vast war will ensue and drag the entire world into it, and which side the giants pledge their alliance to will have a profound effect on the outcome of this war. And sort of just like big idea of, okay, like how's this war going to work? It's gonna be like all the various races, or like pirates against marines, and like how's this whole idea going to work out? And like, hey, I honestly take it that what Gunko's trying to say is whoever pretty much has giants is going to end up sort of winning the war, or at least have a massive advantage. That sort of just seems like the common consensus, right? And the whole idea is like, hey, they're kidnapping all the giant children, so the giants will team up with the world government, pretty much, right? Pretty simple stuff here, all things considered. But we just see Gunko going through, doing all this various stuff. And then it seems like Killingham and Summers are getting ready to use some of the transponder snails on the island to go through and pretty much just like broadcast some message all the way out there, right? We see that St. Somers is dealing with Saul here in a moment, and we see that Saul ends up getting knocked down by his Thorn Devil Fruit. It's not really looking too good for Saul, but the whole idea also here at the end of the chapter is Somers is just like, hey, you're going to use the violent, vicious, violent power that once terrified the world in service to us as mercenaries. Isn't that right, King Harold? And then stupid Harold had to go and screw it all up. And with those sort of like notes of like, hey, maybe Harold wasn't as good as the guy who we thought he was, right? That's where we end off this chapter of One Piece. Again, it's a decently cool note, but like, I'm not the biggest fan of One Piece week to week constantly. I very much view One Piece as a series that's read much better in like big chunks at a time, because like then it's like, hey, go through all this, understand what Oda is really building up to, and sort of get done there. Fine chapter of One Piece though, didn't hate it by any means, and hey, I like Gunko, I think she's pretty cool, so the more we see of her, I think personally, the better, right? Each of which was another amazing chapter this week, as we start off with a little bit of a flashback with like Goku Raku going through all of these various things, and like he's talking with his mother like, hey mom, so I'm gonna make all of these magic items that like even men can use, and then like we can bring back all the prosperity to our land, like with the magic items I create, so that men can like channel magic a little bit, right? And we see both Goku Raku and Princess Richa's mother pretty much saying like, oh, thank you Goku Raku, my kind sweet boy. And we also see later that Goku Raku and Richa are going through and laying flowers on their mother's grave, right? At this point, Richa has already found Lord Bakugami and has had all of her sadness taken away. And it's this really emotional moment where pretty much Richa is just saying like, hey, we don't need to give these flowers to our mother because I'm not sad about it anymore. But we see the tears just streaming down her face. And Richa even says like, oh, is it raining? And she's like, oh, how strange, because of course the tears are falling into her. Oh, it's such like a sad and emotional moment, and we really see where this is like where Goku Raku's whole thing of like, hey, I want to murder you, Bakugami, began. So we just pretty much like he goes and takes a hammer, completely wrecks this guy, and we also see the face of the Joyous Sorrows magic sort of come out and just say like, hey, hug me, you don't care about anything anymore, you like filthy little brat. Of course, like this is where Goku Raku is starting calling like this big loser of a guy, pretty much, and this bastard of a magic. And at this point, we just see a bunch of these various things. We see their father actually disown Goku Raku here in a moment, saying like, hey, any person who'd harm Bakugami is not a son of mine, pretty much. It's honestly a really harsh thing, as eventually we cut back to the present, where we see that, of course, the Joyous Sorrows magic is just saying like, hey, maybe I'll make your sister take all of the pain for me, Goku Raku. And Goku Raku just is like, no, I'll do it. And pretty much the Joyous Stars magic is just like, hey, what are you talking about? I said I don't want you to do it, so and Goku Raku's is like, hey, I'll take those 10 years of sadness. I will bear it all. Give me that goo ball now, pretty much, right? And I love how Descross is just in the background like, hey, dude, you can't handle all of this, so just, like, go adult, right? And Goku Rockers is like, hey, butt out, I'll do it, I have to. As we see that the Joyous Sorrows magic is like, oh, damn, your love for your sister, oh, I'm really touched, I really am. In fact, I'll give you two a special chance. Behold. As he spins a little bit of like a roulette, or he creates this little bit of like a roulette wheel here in a moment, as we pretty much see like it's got like 4 sections to it, right? 2 very small sections are labeled Goku Raku and Dumb Witch, of course, referring to Descross, and the other 2, which are like the majority of the entire thing, really lands on the name of Richa, right? And pretty much he's just like, hey, look at this, it's Challenger Roulette, right? And I really love how he's just like, all right, who would choose? He starts to spit it, but Goku Raku just comes through and punches the thing completely. He says like, hey, I said I'll do it. Quit messing around, you arrogant pig. And pretty much, he's just like, hey, what are you doing? But the rules. And Goku Rock's like, hey, I don't care. I never paid attention to him before, so I'm not going to start now. As you can see that he goes, pulls his fist back, does a synchro rate 50% simple punch straight into the Joyous Stars magic, and just continues just like pummeling into this guy pretty much, right? As he's pretty much like, hey, that does it. I've decided. I've chosen my challenger. I'm going to make you watch. And it looks like he's going to have Richa do it again, right? And he says like, hey, as your precious sister screams in agony while she loses her mind. But then from the sky, Ichi rains down and curb stomps the Joyous Sorrow's magic. And he's like, hey, Gokuraku, is this the bastard magic that you wanted to punch? And we end off this chapter on this really, really awesome note of Ichi coming down here just like pummeling into this thing after Gokuraku already there. And he's like, hey, bro, you're my friend. Is this the guy you wanted to beat up? Because I'm going to help you beat him up. Excellent, excellent chapter of Ichi, which I absolutely loved it this week, right? Of course, we have Ruri Dragon, of course, our bi-weekly series back again this week, and what an amazing chapter of Ruri Dragon this really was. Pretty much, it's all about Ruri learning more about her draconic traits with the teacher. I really need to write down his name somewhere so I remember it, because he's like probably like the third most important character in Ruri Dragon. I always just call him like, hey, Ruri's teacher, when I know we clearly have a name for him, right? But either way, like, hey, Ruri currently just like unlocked her ice dragon powers pretty much. And we see that the teacher goes outside and like takes him, just pretty much explains like, hey, the way your abilities work, we sort of like break them up into a few different sections, right? You've got some psychological attributes that are ever present, we call those traits. And on the other hand, you've got some powers you can call consciously upon, we call those abilities, right? And I really love how Ruri just says like, oh, so you're taking like passive versus active skills pretty much, right? And there's another person out here who seems to be an art teacher who just is like, oh, like video games, now you're speaking my language. I think it's a little bit of a funny moment right there, right? But the teacher pretty much just says like, hey, we're going to go in and have a lesson on dragons. He also sort of explains like, hey, there's a lot of things that I want to tell you about all of this and like helping you predict all of these so they don't like cause a disaster in class, but sort of like my role is a little weird where I can't particularly do that. It's a little bit of an interesting topic. But eventually, he goes inside and pretty much gives like a massive lesson on dragons here in the moment. And the rest of the chapter is really focusing on Ruri's day pretty much. Just going through, hey, she's got all of these ice powers. She goes to try to open a door. The door lock freezes shut. She can't get in, right? She goes, gets a water bottle. She can't drink it because the water was frozen, right? And pretty much the whole idea, the final sort of little bit of a joke at the end of the chapter is that, hey, everybody's coming through pretty much using Ruri as like an ice dispenser almost. And like, hey, buckets of ice were placed all around their classroom, so they were cool even though the AC wasn't on. Look at that. Honestly, my one gripe with this chapter is I really wish that, like, we had a longer period where we just see the teacher going through and, like, confidently talking about all of Ruri's abilities, really giving us, the audience, a reminder of, like, hey, this is what Ruri could do. It's not a problem whatsoever. I still thought it was a very good chapter, and I really did enjoy it. But still, at the one singular point, I really wish that we would have had more of an overview of everything, but still, good chapter of Ruri Dragon that I enjoyed, right? Kill Blue, I always go back and forth on Kill Blue, like, hey, this chapter isn't very good. This chapter is pretty good. And this chapter definitely lands, like, I laughed my ass off reading this chapter. I thought this was a absolutely amazing chapter of Kill Blue. It also is the 2-year anniversary of Kill Blue, so I can't believe I've been reading this series this long, but I mean, we got 2 more chapters till chapter 100, and for all the ups and downs and weird aspects that this series has, there are some really good chapters, and I truly think this is one of them, right? It pretty much opens up with Ogami walking around with all of the Home Ec Club members, and a few of them are like, hey, or I think just some of his friends in their homeroom class pretty much, they talk about like, hey, there's all this divination stuff, and everybody's like, fortune telling is so cool, right? Ogami gets wrapped up into all of this and pretty much learns that Kazuma is the one who is going through all this. I really like seeing Kazuma. I really wish we have been seeing more of him throughout the entire series, being able to, like, hey, it's established he goes to this school, right? So it's like, I really wish we were able to see more out of Kazuma at the end of the day, right? Pretty much Kazuma pretty much says like, hey, your life's going to be full of ups and downs, but make sure to watch out for water and horses, right? Ogami's like, hey, that's horse shit. It doesn't matter, right? Pretty much walking through, he gets water splashed on him by the aquarium club, and the equestrian club has a horse that runs Ogami over, right? And Ogami's like, wow, the power of divination is so cool and good, right? He pretty much gets like super duper into it pretty much to the point where he comes to school the next day with all of this garble, and pretty much he's got like this miracle pot with him and all this various stuff. Pretty much like, hey, I'm going to make a lot of money. And there's also even a note that he put all of his money in the crypto world pretty much, right? Which is like, really, Ogami, you're a middle-aged guy. You should not be doing all of this whenever you've, like, been de-aged, pretty much, right? Pretty much some really weird stuff where Ogami ends up getting, like, tied up, and it's like, oh, look at that, he's a pervert, pretty much, right? Was my favorite part of the chapter. But either way, pretty much, while Ogami was in this phase, he got a meeting with the club president of the Divination Club, right? So eventually, he goes to check out who the president of the Divination Club is, walks in, and we see that it is none other than Kikunosuke Iori. As we pretty much learn, like, hey, he is not only the leader of the Divination Club, but he is also one of the members on the Rika Student Council, pretty much, right? We see that he's also the secretary of it, right? This is the guy that I've been referring to as the ninja guy before, right? And pretty much it says like, hey, I was a little surprised to see you here, so you're Juzo Ogami. Juraku of General Affairs told me about you, but I never imagined that we would meet like this. And Ogami's sort of like a little bit of shock by like, what is this, right? Pretty much he fills out this form that Iori pretty much tells him to fill out, and he pretty much just, and Iori just sort of reasons, just like, hey, according to this formula in this notebook, I must admit I'm a little bewildered by what I'm sitting. What it's telling me should not be possible. Were you ever some sort of hired killer? Dun 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 dun. I thought this was a very solid chapter of Kill Blue. So Kill Blue always sort of like fluctuates on the scales a little bit, but just like really seeing Ogami get into the next part of the story, the hype moment of like, hey, 2-year anniversary, and honestly just a funny joke of Ogami going through all of this and like understanding at the end of the day we can get back to the serious plot points. I definitely did like it. There's also another little joke in this chapter where it's talking about like, hey, Ogami, your like whole Forticore arc whenever you were going through and watching all of the Magical Girl anime was like a 10 times better than whatever you're into now, so please never do this again. I really like this chapter of Kill Blue for sure. Sidcraft Love is a Mystery. It's just like, hey, it seems like the Zero Craft is finally becoming a part of the story. He has gone through and pretty much abducted all of the children at Lulu's sanctuary, orphanage that she always goes and donates stuff to, right? Pretty much Sid learns about this through some ways, through like some calling card that Lulu pretty much drops down for him. It's pretty much the whole thing of like, hey, I need you to kill Elio, and then Elio ends up sort of like getting fake killed pretty much, and the whole idea is like, hey, Sid and Lulu are teaming up together to pretty much go through, or Sid and who he does not know is Lulu, but is a Phantom Thief Miscat, are going to pretty much work together to save all those children at the orphanage. Honestly, this wasn't my favorite chapter. It really felt too much of like, hey, we're shoving all of this in together, because it sort of like starts with, hey, Elio is dead, and then as it sort of progresses, it moves to like, hey, this is how we got here. It really wasn't anything cool. It was just Sid being like, hey, Lulu, I like you, and we're going to do this, and we're going to figure this out, right? He doesn't say, like, I like you, but it's pretty much like, hey, Miss Cat, I'm going to help you save all the kids at the orphanage, because I think those are some cute kids, pretty much, right? It was a fine chapter of Sidcraft. I mean, it got the job done at the end of the day, but, like, it was nothing that I sat here and was like, man, Sidcraft was so funny or cool this week. I will be interested to see where this arc leads, and it really seems like they're making Lulu the main love interest in this series, which is cool because, like, she has been my favorite since she was pretty much shown off in, what was that, Chapter 3 or Chapter 4? I do forget. But either way, that's Chapter of Sidcraft this week. Not really too much to write home about, right? But if you want to write home about a chapter, Embers is one for the literal ages this week, right? As of course, the whole idea is like, hey, Oshimi-sensei's here, and he's watching the match between Iba Seiryu and Kosei Affiliated. Pretty much, we see that now that Haitani is going through and being able to get the ball from Kaneda, he's pretty much going through, pretty much saying like, hey, we're going to steal the ball, I'm going to pass it, and then we're going to score, and we're just going to be repeating this scenario pretty much, right? As the whole idea is like Haitani's also learning a bit more about the game as everything's going on, and Bugai even comments like, hey, some guys can only really grow in games, and it finally looks like he is growing here in this moment. It's a pretty nice image pretty much, right? And we also see that Yukizuki and Ikage, who are sitting in the stands that Yukizuki's like, hey, as long as we have the ball, we can take as many shots as we want. Like, hey, I know that's obvious, but we're finally going to make it happen. Now, we're like a machine gun that never runs out of ammo. With like, guys, this is a soccer or a not American football, a rest of the world football, American soccer manga, and it's like a machine gun analogy. I love this series. Like, it's just so fun and awesome, right? Pretty much Kosei affiliated goes through at the end of the day. They completely whip Ibasaryu's ass, pretty much getting a score of 1-5, 5 in Kosei affiliated's favor. They just absolutely beat them, and Kaneda's just like, this is terrible, right? We pretty much see the team is walking back to the school after this really big match, and both Haitani and Yukizuki are just like so incredibly happy. She's like, hey, you guys are literally the best, right? And I love how Takami's like, hey, we only won one game, but like, but hey, we still crushed Ibasaru, a team we struggled against last year. Like, hey, that will at least get a person excited, right? And they're just like so happy in the moment, right? As pretty much Haitani notices walking towards them in the background is Oshimi-sensei, right? And we see that both Haitani and Yukizuki have a very different reaction to seeing him here, right? And he's like, oh, Sensei is so cool, right? And I love how Takami's like, hey, who's this? And he's like, hey, this is my soccer master from back in middle school. He's so cool, ain't he, right? And Oshimi's like, hey, I wasn't anything important. I'm just another teacher. He's like, hey, but still, I didn't almost recognize you. Like, look at you. You're a full-on starter on a powerhouse team. And Haitani sort of blushes a little bit like, oh, man, you're calling me a good soccer player. I love this pretty much, right? But then the next thing that happens is Yukizuki goes through, grabs Haitani's face, and pretty much, like, slings him to the ground. She's like, hey, I told you not to come here, right? And Oshimi's like, oh, hey, what's wrong? It was a good game, right? And pretty much Tran's like, hey, do you two know each other? As we get the reveals, Yukizuki's like, yeah, how could we not? He's my grandpa. And I love Haitani's expression as he just has like a, what? Pretty much, right? And Oshimi's like, hey, you're telling me you didn't tell him, right? But pretty much we just learn a little bit about Manabu Oshimi. He's like, hey, back when he was a student, Kosei was one of the weakest teams around, but he took us to nationals and almost entirely won on his own. After he graduated, he got invited to the All-Japan team. The man is a legend at Kosei, right? And like, hey, whatever the case, that makes Yukizuki a grandkids legend. A lot of people say she got to be the coach, club advisor, purely because of her name alone. And it's like this really interesting image almost. We just see like, hey, he is an extremely big deal. And it also reminded me like, yeah, that's right. Haitani specifically went to Oshimi's home of honor pretty much because he wanted to play soccer the same place that he played soccer at back in the day. So like a lot of this stuff is like really just clicking together. I really like this, right? As the whole idea is Yukizuki's like, hey, why are you here anyway? And Oshimi's like, hey, well, I wanted to watch my granddaughter and my former student's big game, of course. And aside from that, I thought I'd offer my greetings, right? She's like, what are you talking about greetings? As we see Yuzin Nerima and Toma Miura. Of course, Toma Miura is the name for the guy who was with Yuzin Nerima all these are times we've seen him so far, right? We now know his name, right? But Toma and Nerima are pretty much walking up here in a moment, and everybody's like, why is Kurobayashi here, right? And they pretty much just walk up, they address Bugai, a little bit of a thing, but either way, they say like, hey, have you finished your greetings, Coach Oshimi? He's like, oh yeah, I have. I got to say hi to my former student. And of course, they're all like, what's going on here? And Luke's like, Grandpa, like, what is going on? Like, our rivals? Are you seriously coaching Kurobayashi? And he's like, hey, when I hit the mandatory retirement age, they made me an offer and I accepted. And he's like, hey, is there anything wrong with that? But she's just like, I don't like this, right? But pretty much Haitani just walks up and is like, hey, this is completely awesome, right? And a few of the teammates are like, hey, do you even get what this means? But he just says like, hey, we get to kick the kings off their thrones, and I get to have a rematch against Sensei to boot. It's two birds with one stone. What could be greater? As we just see Yuzin Nerima in the background just go like, oh, disappointing. And he's like, hey, Coach talked you up as like you were an interesting guy and all, but there's nothing complex about you at all. And Itai's like, hey, what are you talking about, bro, right? Yuzin just says like, hey, Coach, can we go now? I told you this was a waste of time. As he's just fiddling with the Rubik's Cube more here in a moment. And Haitani just grabs it off his hand and says like, hey, you want to talk? Sure, go ahead. but I don't like your attitude. Look a guy in the eye whenever you talk to him. And Narima's just like, hey, give that back. And pretty much the entire team of like Kosei is just like, Haitani, what the hell are you doing, right? As eventually Yuzin just goes over to grab his arm. And he grabs Haitani's arm, and Haitani almost has to involuntarily drop the Rubik's Cube, as pretty much Yuzin just says like, hey, see, nothing interesting about you in the least, right? Oshimi's like, you two, no fighting, and he's like, I would hardly call that a fight, coach, right? Tomo's like, hey, we're really sorry about Narima, we're gonna leave now, right? And he just says like, hey, we look forward to seeing you in the semifinals, Kosei affiliated. And that is where we end this chapter of Embers. Like, bro, this chapter was absolutely amazing. There is nothing else I can really say. This chapter was just so hype. Like, Kagurabachi was absolutely amazing. Like, all these chapters were good. I just love this chapter of Embers, finding out about all of this stuff. Hey, Yukizuki, hey, it's your granddad. It's the same person who taught Haitani. And, like, there's just so much awesome stuff to it. Embers, absolutely amazing, right? Star of Beethoven. Beethoven finds out what a roller coaster is, and there's this moment where he, like, reflects on his surrogate son or something, pretty much, and yeah, it was I don't know, I don't even want to talk about this chapter, Star of Beethoven. It was, like, okay, I didn't find anything really interesting in it, to be honest with you guys, so we're not really going to talk about it. Lexi and Marcia are finally here. It seems like they may be doing something. Woohoo, yee-hee! Star of Beethoven, right? The next series we have to talk about is Nice Prison, which is the new series that started this week, and this is a gag manga focused in a prison where, like, hey, the worst of the worst are here at this prison. But hey, all of them in this certain cell block are being kept in touch, pretty much, or, like, are being held to being good people by our main character, so it seems, what is his name again? He is a model prisoner, or a supermodel prisoner, pretty much. What is his name as he gets introduced? His name is Horo Mitsuboshi, pretty much, right? There's a lot of comedy stuff where, like, he's got this big, massive chain ball that pretty much reacts like something or other. Like, he can voice control it pretty much like an Amazon Alexa. The whole idea is, like, hey, there's this pretty much new police guard named Tara Adachi who's also coming in to pretty much do here. Pretty much just straight man to Horo's pretty much funny man sort of stuff, right? There's this not very model prisoner who Horo has to go and pretty much deal with. Is like, all he does is just talk to people about romance, pretty much. He pretty much, like, runs him over with his big leg ball, pretty much, and, like, catches him in it, pretty much, as, like, a Pokeball joke. It's okay. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you, this was not my favorite first chapter of really anything. It's 39 pages, it is strictly a gag series, and it looks like, hey, we have this other idea, the super death row prisoner, he's the big evil guy, and you, Horo, did I mention what Horo's backstory is? The only reason he is here at this prison is strictly because, like, hey, I, ding-dong, ditched myself so I could come back to the prison because I was born here, pretty much. And it's just, I don't know, this wasn't my favorite chapter of anything by far. Like, yeah, I'm honestly just going ahead and just say I'm going to be putting this series on the bottom. I found no funniness. I found no joy in this series whatsoever. Honestly, I wouldn't give it another few chapters, but as I normally do, I give every series that comes out in Shonen Jump 3 chapters. And if I start liking it by then hey, we're going to keep it around, but I honestly don't want to read more of this. This was just, like, so painfully unfunny to me, and I also just don't like the whole thing of, like, hey, I'm a prisoner, and we're going to make prison all fun, and making jokes about super death row inmates. It sort of seems a little out of touch to me. Like I said, I'll give the next few chapters, and maybe I'll have, like, this big emotional moment on the inside, but the art's just not my thing, and all that stuff considered, we're just going to be putting it on the bottom. I want to, like I said, we're going to give it 2 more chapters, but at this point, I'm not really into it, right? But hey, a new series begins, which means another series must end. As this week, we have the end of Astro Royale on chapter number 50. Pretty much to go through this chapter, we see that Hibaru's going through, using everybody's hopes and dreams to pretty much go through and punch Tendo. Tendo's like, damn you, Yotsurugi's, right? And pretty much explodes into a million pieces, right? But as this happens, Hibaru sort of awakens inside of the theoretical realm of the Daybreak Ore. As the voice just is like, hey, it looks like I got a second Daybreak Ore, Hibaru. As Hibaru's just like, oh, I thought it was you. I heard you went missing, but I recognized your voice. Sora, as we get introduced to the Yotsurugi family, 7th adopted child, Sora Yotsurugi, right? As pretty much just says like, hey, did Daybreak or the meteorite? It all began at Plant Zero when Dad accidentally came across a certain something when drilling for oil there. An extraterrestrial. And Dad named that being Sora. Not long after, the government caught wind of my existence, and they tried to steal me away, but Dad protected me by adopting me. As we pretty much see the whole family meeting where he's like, hey guys, this is your new sister starting today, her name's Sora, and the entire family is like, whoa, look at that, right? Pretty much just like, Shio's like, hey, why Dad adopt such a worthless girl? Pretty much like, hey, he's supposed to be searching for a successor here in a moment. As we pretty much see another one of the Yotsurugi family members, the 4th adopted child, Tsubasa, comes up in this moment, just like, hey, stop it, don't talk about her like that, and he pretty much tells Sora, like, hey, just ignore all of them. It's like, hey, I'll protect you, right? Get a little bit of narration explaining, like, hey, Tsubasa was often in and out of hospitals due to poor health, but he was always kind to me, or at least that's what Sora's thinking here in a moment. We see that Sora goes to see Tsubasa in the hospital and pretty much tells her, like, hey, I'm an alien. He's like, I don't believe you. That's a really funny story, right? But either way, Tsubasa's like, hey, but if that's true and we grow up, I'll just have to marry you so you don't go back to space. And she's like, marry me? And it's like, are you two technically adoptive siblings? I don't like where this is going, but alas, he just says, like, hey, you and I are a lot alike. We're not strong like all of our siblings, and I'm sure Dad adopted you so he could protect you. Two things like, hey, Tsubasa loved me despite who I was, as the whole idea is eventually the father says, like, hey, the government wanted Sora, I sold her off, pretty much. And we see that Tsubasa is not happy about this, always like, hey, I'm going to save Sora no matter what. As we see, hey, it took 2 years, but he eventually found Sora in Plant Zero, which had pretty much completely changed for the worse, right? As we see that Sora was pretty much leveled down to becoming the Daybreak Aura. He's like, Sora, is that you? How could they be so cruel? I won't let them get away with it. Not the government, not this whole world. As Sora is pretty much telling Hibaro this whole story, she's like, hey, the Daybreak Ore is a result of experiments done on my body, which broke it into 6 pieces. And like, hey, the day Dad died, Tsubasa stood in the middle of Kasumi Gaseki and pretty much used the Daybreak Ore. He traded his own life and this country's central government away to alter the trajectory of asteroids, which caused the disaster. Hatred, desire, I have the power to grant any wish, no matter what it is. So I ask you once again, Hibaru, what do you wish for after collecting all of these fragments of my body? As like, hey, Hibaru finally wakes up in a moment. Hey, all of the Yotsurugi people are finally, like, reuniting with each other. There's a little bit of a thing where Kimpa's like, hey, I'm glad Hibaru's alive. And Ruri's like, hey, can't have your future husband dying, right? And she's like, what are you talking about? We gotta make sure we get the ships in the last few pages of this series, right? As pretty much Hibaru just thinks like, hey, Sora, one day I'm going to rebuild this world with all of my siblings together. And when I do that, I'll destroy all of the fragments of the Daybreak Ore. Tsubasa's final wish was for destruction, but with a glimmer of hope is what created this power. And he's like, hey, come on, everybody. We've got a lot to do as we pretty much get Chapter 50, Destruction and Hope, end. It's like, hey, that is the Astro Royale series. We see this final little bit of a page where it's like, hey, all of the family members now working together. Hey, Shikaba and Tiara are here, along with all of our other characters like Ko, Kuran, Rari, Torazo, and of course, Kimpa, and, oh, what is his, Tarasu. I don't know why I was blocking on his name here. And that is where we end Astro Royale, the series. And I am really conflicted on this, because earlier today, I do own a few of the Tokyo Revengers volumes in Japanese, right? I've gotten Japanese manga a few various times, and I just own a few volumes of his Kid Wakui's one of his really big manga, which was Tokyo Revengers, and I pretty much was flipping through those after I read this chapter this morning, and it really just makes me understand Tokyo Revengers was completely excellent. It was a good series from start to end. I won't really say from start to end. It was definitely a very good series for, like, until the whole big thing where it was like, hey, I honestly forget the characters' names, but pretty much where season 3 of the anime ended off, even though I was not a big fan of the anime adaptation of Tokyo Revengers, I definitely think the manga is more superior, but pretty much where the 3rd season ended off was where, like, hey, Tokyo Revengers was an amazing ride up to that point, right? And Astro Royale started off with a lot of potential, and I really love the theoretical story that sort of gets crammed here into the final chapter. The whole idea of like, hey, this is what it was. We were going to have like some extraterrestrial life form. It was going to be one of the Yotsurugi sisters. Through time, we'd also learn like, hey, the 4th and 7th member of the Yotsurugi family have disappeared, coming through, understanding all of this. But I really think this series really took a turn for the worse whenever it had the Astro Battle Royale and just the way in which it played out. Really, I was enjoying this series decently enough. Like, it wasn't my favorite series to read each week, but like, hey, during the Himuro arc, I was like decently enjoying it, right? Like, I was sort of excited to read it, but then whenever the ABR started, I was like, I really don't care about this whatsoever. I don't care about Shikaba. He just seems like a guy who's there pretty much, right? And it's like, hey, of course, I understand, like, hey, just having Tarasu and Ibaru coming and doing this, but you got this other random kid who's here, and hey, he human traffics people, but he's apparently a good guy also. I don't know. This series, I thought, started off with a lot of potential, and I really did enjoy it, but I do think that it took a few missteps in a way, and honestly, I know Kinwakui will be back at some point with another absolutely amazing story, but this just wasn't it. But either way, I still enjoyed Astro Royale for the story it told in general. I mean, hell, last year, one of my favorite moments was when we had this stupid character named Harumi Poseidon who just appeared out of nowhere in a chapter and had a wrestling match with Karan. I thought that was extremely amazing, but this series just wasn't really meant to be, so good chapter of Astro Royale, and hey, I enjoyed it for what it was at the end of the day. Hime-ten is up next, and really just to explain this chapter pretty quick, hey, Yoshino pretty much has now realized, hey, I do like this doofus of Iamori, and the whole idea is like, hey, she now has a cat in the house, and what can I say? Genki Ono, the guy who writes this series, or the guy or girl, don't particularly know, they draw a really funny looking cat. It's pretty much just like, it looks like this like small stray dog almost, but it's just like really, really cute. There's a lot of cute moments between both Himari and Iamori. Here's like the two of them are sort of getting closer and bonding because of the cat, which is eventually named Maro by Himari pretty much, right? And pretty much the whole idea is like, hey, through all of this, Himari's like, hey, will you let me off the cat, Iamori's like, yeah, why not, pretty much, right? Good chapter of Hime-ten. I definitely enjoyed it, but like besides the whole idea of like, hey, it's the cat chapter, I really don't have too much else to say about it. I definitely wanted to see more of Maro going forward because cats are the best animal. There will be nothing you can say that pretty much dissuade my mind from that pretty much, right? Hime-ten was a good chapter, right? But if we want to talk about good chapters, let's talk about Ultimate Exorcist Kiyoshi. As pretty much this is like, hey, this is about Sosuke versus Kurose Sata, the third Demon Lord, right? As we see the two of them are pretty much going back and forth, and it's like, hey, Sosuke is at a massive disadvantage here. He's the one who has a water power, and who is his enemy? A guy who has an ice power, who can freeze the water that he uses, pretty much, right? As we pretty much see coming through here, Sosuke tries to fire off a few shots, but like lines them up behind each other, so they sort of go through and pierce Kurose in the head pretty much. He's like, hey, that's not good enough to beat me, but eventually he uses his perfect blue white dragon, pretty much mimicking a water jet cutting pretty much, like pierce through Kurose Sata. And he pretty much was like, hey, I'm going to blast past all of your defenses and cut right through you, right? But of course, he goes through and does this, but this isn't enough. Sosuke just doesn't have enough power here in the moment, right? He keeps using his white dragon abilities, but Kurose Sata is just a bit too powerful, freezing him where he stands, going through and punching him straight into the stomach, as he's pretty much like, hey, you're done, Sosuke. He's like, don't worry, I'll be sending Kiyoshi Harai to you in the afterlife, pretty much, right? And Sosuke's like, no, I can't die here. He just thinks like back to his mother, pretty much, right? As we see that his mother was also a cross paladin, and pretty much I really love how like little baby Sosuke is like interacting with his mother. It's just like a really cool thing. He's like, "Tada, isn't that awesome?" As he like holds up a little paper and says like, hey, he got 100 on a test in school, and his mother's like, oh, that's amazing, Sosuke, right? He's like, hey, do you think I can become an awesome cross paladin like you, mom? And his mom just is like, hey, and of course, also it's cross paladin, not cross paradigm, as he also called it here a second ago, right? And he just says like, hey, but really, why do you think that, right? And she's like, hey, it's because like you're totally amazing and like my incredible kid, pretty much, right? And he's like, oh, that sounds like all sophistery, right? And she's like, hey, who's teaching you words like that, right? But she pretty much explains, like, hey, what matters most to becoming a cross paladin is right in here. She taps his chest, and he's like, what, my pecs? Are those important? She's like, no. A cross paladin never loses heart. They need courage to face any hardship, right? It's like, oh man, you're so cool, you're my mother, I love you, pretty much, right? Sosuke, I just really like how Sosuke's mother is sort of drawn here, and like, hey, seems like she was a very good mother to Sosuke, right? But then we have to cut. She is dead. She was protecting a boy just as young as Sosuke here in the moment, right? And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this was Kyoshi, who we also know is like, I don't know if we know that he was protected by some woman whenever he was young, but like, it may have been what spurred Kyoshi to become like an Nexus to begin with. I don't think we really know Kyoshi's whole backstory here in the moment, right? But either way, she's like, hey, just know whenever you're losing heart, that's when you smile, pretty much. Like, hey, go on and tell the world about everything you've got, right? And Kurose Sada here in a moment is just freezing pretty much Sosuke's entire face, right? As Sosuke is like, yeah, that's right. I can't go and kick the bucket now. I still have a dream to become a cross paladin, just like my mom. It just is like, hey, Sada, this cold of yours can't chill the fire in my heart. As we see that he holds two fingers up to his head, almost mimicking a gun, and in this moment uses his exorcism techniques, as pretty much we just see that Kurose like, hey, don't tell me he melted the ice, and he's like, wait, did he do it by shooting himself with boiling water? As we see that Sosuke's been free, he's like, hey, that was a gamble, but hey, it sure paid off. If I could fire my water at high speeds, why wouldn't I be able to vibrate all of the molecules and heat it up too, right? As pretty much we just see Kurose Sada just like, hey, what's your name? As Sosuke just says, hey, sorry, my name isn't something I'd willingly tell a demon. And that is where we end this excellent chapter of Ultimate Exes Kyoshi, man. This was so cool. I love seeing Sosuke go through, do all of his stuff, use his exorcism technique. It was just so absolutely cool. I love this chapter of Ultimate Exes Kyoshi. Sosuke looked like a badass, and he's shown what he's made of. I absolutely loved it for sure, right? Akane Banashi is up next, and really this is a whole chapter based on Karashi, pretty much going through and doing all of his stuff. We learned, like, whenever he was talking with Chocho told him, like, hey, your fatal fall, Karashi, as that you've never once truly put everything on the line, right? As we're pretty much going to like a little bit of a flashback, seeing Karashi do some Rakugo stuff, where he participated in like a Rakugo comedy sort of thing and ended up winning the competition at the end of the day. And the whole idea is like, hey, that year Karashi was the first Rakugo to reach the final round of the Z1 Grand Prix after he finishes the running up, earning him plenty of attention, but it was actually his act that got people talking. They wondered, is this really Rakugo? As it seems like he entered the Z1 competition, which seems just to be like a strictly comedy-based thing, but the whole idea is like Karashi's bringing Rakugo into it also, or at least that's sort of what I took from it. Don't really quite know for sure, right? But the whole idea is like, hey, Karashi, Hikaru, and Akane are all going to have a rematch here at the new, I forget what the new tournament is called, but it's looking, or the Zunin Prize, or I think it was, yeah, the Zunin or Rurin Prize, whatever it was. Either way, they're going to have a rematch like the Karaku Cup, pretty much. And hey, really cool moment. Really like seeing both. I really love just Hikaru. Oh gosh, why can I not remember his name this second? Karashi and Akane. I love their dynamics as rivals, and I really can't wait to see where this goes. I absolutely love these characters. Can't wait to see them again, pretty much, right? But yeah, good chapter of Akane Banashi. Really, what can I say, right? Blue Box was another excellent chapter of manga this week. If I can type in Akane Banashi, there we go, yeah. Blue Box was a very excellent chapter, so you pretty much feel like, hey, it's New Year's time in the Blue Box world. As we also get a very nice color page with, like, all of our pretty much important characters, like, hey, Chinatsu, Hina, Taiki, Kyo, and Ayame, all in, like, gachapon balls, pretty much, right? So a bit of a cool color page. I do like it, right? But the whole idea is that, Ayame's like, hey, Happy New Year, everybody. They're all going to a Shinto shrine and getting their fortunes told, pretty much, right? They also run into both Akari, Hyodo, and Haruto there, and I really like how Haruto comes up Or no, Akari goes up first and is like, oh, hello, Taiki Senpai, I hope you have an amazing New Year, because of course she's a little bit infatuated with him, as we know, right? Hyodo just is like, hey, Happy New Year, guy, right? And we also just see that he looks over to Haruto, and Haruto's like, sup? What's going on, right? And pretty much Hyodo and Akari are like, come on, give Taiki a better greeting than that, right? And pretty much, he just explains, like, hey, Happy New Year, here's to another good one, right? As we also see that Hyodo's like, hey, I invited Shuji too, but he's a recluse when it comes to anything that's not badminton, so he really won't show up to anything I invite him to unless it's some sort of practice, right? As we see that Shuji is just spending his New Year in bed, which is like, we don't know much about Shuji Yusa, but that seems like one thing that is like so real, all things considered, right? But either way, there's a little bit of a talk of like, hey, practicing badminton with each other, and Hyodo pretty much says like, hey, Yusa, not Yusa, Haruto, maybe a bit better than you were at this time last year, Taiki, ha ha ha. As the whole idea of Taiki being like, hey, I've got a gut even stronger, right? And also, Akari just asks like, hey, why were you saying all of that stuff to like Taiki back there, right? And Hyodo just is like, hey, I need everyone to get much stronger through competition, and I want more people who can compete against me, right? And Akari's like, are you really my brother? That's just like a terrible thing to do, pretty much, right? But either way, we see that everybody goes up to the shrine, does their little bit of like some claps and just prays to the gods, as Taiki just says like, hey, dear God, I'll be going to nationals, so please watch over me, right? Pretty much going through here, he gets his fortune, and it seems it's like a decent one. It's not great, but it's not terrible either. He says like, hey, Kyo, what's yours? And Kyo pretty much like turns around his paper. It is a literal curse. And Taiki's like, I'm sorry, Kyo, pretty much, right? But we all see that Ayami's over there in the corner, pretty much like, man, I'm getting a little bit of a cold thing over here, right? Kyo walks over, offers her some akamaze, pretty much, right? She's like, hey, I don't like this stuff pretty much, but Kyo just is like, hey, but it tastes so good. She's like, hey, maybe I'll get a little bit of a sip of it, right? But as they're pretty much going over and doing all of this, right, we see that Kyo notices somebody on the ground and goes over and pretty much says like, hey, excuse me, are you doing all right? And this guy's like, hey, I dropped a 10 yen coin on the ground around here, pretty much. Kyo spots it, hands it over to him. And we see this is none other than Takasago, who, of course, is Ayami's current boyfriend, right? And she pretty much comes over like, oh, hey, Shota, you're here, pretty much, right? And they have this really nice little moment where they're just talking with each other, and they both seem very much extremely happy with each other, right? And there's also a little bit of a note like, hey, no other girls are seeming to currently be in Shota's life pretty much. So it doesn't seem like Ayami has to like be on edge. She can definitely relax while being with him, right? And we pretty much see that Taiki like looks over to Kyo, and Kyo's not looking too happy, all things considered, right? We see that Ayami and her friend, I think it's Nina, if I'm not mistaken, both walk off somewhere. As we see, of course, the three childhood friends, Kyo, Taiki, and Hina, all getting on the train and going off with each other, right? And whenever they go and sort of get on a train, there's a little bit of like a note where the three of them are just talking with each other. But also, Takasago and a few of his friends are on the train, right? And so it's like, oh, what are you talking about, Takasago? Your girlfriend was there? Like, hey, introduce us. You're always bragging about her. Like, she's got to be so cool, right? And pretty much all of them are just, like, going back and forth with each other. And eventually, there's like, hey, we should become friends with her, too. And then we can tell her, like, how head over heels you are for Shota. And eventually, like, hey, you could introduce us as friends, all this other various stuff, right? And, like, hey, let's also, like, get to know her friends, and maybe we'll get to know her better, too, right? As we see that Takasaga is like, oh, well, she came with 2 girls and 2 guys, right? And they're like, what, your girlfriend with other guys, right? And pretty much she just says like, hey, well, that's just who Moria is. She's going to be pretty fine. And just because I'm her boyfriend doesn't mean I have any right to control her, right? And pretty much, like, they're all just hearing this various stuff, right? It's like, but hey, what if one of those, like, boys tries and goes for, right? And I love the moment where it's this little bit of a thing is like, well, from what I've heard about their school, one of them is famous at school for going out with super hot older women or something, which is like, yes, Taiki has Chinatsu as a girlfriend, we all understand, and like, hey. And the other guy doesn't seem to have any interest in a romance. And of course, he's talking about Kyo. And we just see that Taiki, Hina, and Kyo are just having a terrible, terrible time on the train, right? As Adventure's like, I guess some guys like that do actually exist. And like, hey, I guess if he's Moria's type, that's a good thing, right? But eventually they get off the train and Kyo goes and sits down on a bench and just says like, gosh, even for me, that was painfully awkward. As Taiki just is like, hey, Kyo, do you still like Ayame? And he's just like, and he, pretty much Kyo just is like, don't worry, I'll never say it out loud, right? As Taiki just goes and sits down next to him, just like, hey, this might not be what you want to hear, Kyo, but isn't falling for someone else still an option? And Kyo's just like, hey, meanwhile, you're all lovey-dovey with your beloved Shinatsu-senpai. I don't want to hear any of this, Taiki, right? But either way, he's just like, hey, and Taiki's like, hey, I just don't want you to get hurt if I can help it, right? And he's like, hey, Taiki, which one do you suppose there's more of in the world? Unrequited love or love that comes to fruition, right? And Taiki's like, man, that is so incredibly deep, right? And so he's like, all right, guys, let's get going. And he's like, all right, come on, Hina, let's work on our way. And as they pretty much start walking away, we see that Hina has a little bit of this moment just looking down, because of course, she's had some unrequited love in Taiki herself, and gosh, Blue Box just knows how to pull my heartstrings. Like, I was honestly hoping that Takasago would just be like a terrible dude who's like not good for Ayame, so Kyo would get with her, but like, he's a good person, what can I say? Just, Blue Box, you tear my heart out, and I absolutely love you for it. Great chapter of Blue Box, right? The Elusive Samurai, honestly, I'm not going to know anything about this chapter besides like, hey, battle is... Actually, I am. This was a decently good chapter of Elusive Samurai. I don't know what I'm talking about, right? But the whole idea, which is like the big thing at the beginning of this chapter, is the cover page where it's like, hey, this is the Elusive Samurai's 200th chapter. And we get a little bit of just a cover page where we pretty much just see a big spiral staircase, right? Each stair in this staircase is representing a chapter, as we just see a bunch of the other people from Masui's other works, right? We see Koro Sensei from Assassination Classroom standing on the 180th step, because of course there are 180 chapters of that series. We see Tokuyuki on the 200th step, and I don't know what the main character of the other series is. I'm pretty sure it's called like Magatami Poseidon no Neru or whatever, right? But it's like, it's something Poseidon Neru or something like that, right? I don't actually, let me just look it up. Yusui, if I could spell his name, I don't know if I can do this all of a sudden, right? Yusei, it's, yeah, Yusei Matsui, Japanese manga artist. What is he known for? Yeah, Neru's Supernatural Detective, right? That's what it is. Assassination Classroom and the Elusive Samurai. We just see that, of course, Neru's Supernatural Detective ended on chapter 202, and we see the main character of that series waving on Tokuyuki to go past. Of course, Elusive Samurai is going to be Matsui's longest running series. Like, good cover page. What can I say? It's just really so nice and cool, right? Pretty much the whole idea is like, all of the elusive warriors and their allies dress up as like gods from history, pretty much, and like the whole idea is like, hey, Kono Morphowls or whatever his name is, his armies are like, wow, what are all these people doing here? They look like gods, and pretty much like shit their pants, and they lose the battle because of it. That's the chapter. I really liked how they pretty much like brought out what's his name here, Nagao, and like painted him all blue and made him look like some very big intimidating guy named Kongu Zhao Gongen, Grand General of the Left Wing. I don't understand, this is like a bunch of Japanese historical stuff, but either way, it looks pretty cool as we just see a few of the elusive warriors, we see Yoritsugu, and just, it looks like a pretty interesting thing, right? And even we see that Kodro and Shina are both in like outfits like, hey, we're playing a husband and wife. Yes, Kodro, we know you're going to get with Shina. This is that obvious, right? But a decent enough chapter of Elusive Samurai. It's a lot of stuff where like, yeah, I don't particularly care about this whole idea of like, hey, these battles going on, a big battle, but still, I really love the color page. I love how Nagao is pretty much like looking so intimidating here in a moment. The Elusive Samurai was pretty good. And then Witch Watch was a simple comedy chapter based on Bon, as we get chapter number 199 of the series. Pretty much, Morito is very angry at Bon, and the whole idea is like, hey, Nico, can you please, like, cast a spell on me that'll make, Morito not angry at me, right? Hey, it's a spell that pretty much lets all of Morito's emotions turn into a thunderstorm above him, and whenever he gets pissed off enough, it'll pretty much, like, become this big, massive cloud to strike lightning on somebody, right? Bon eventually pushes him over that limit. That's the whole joke of the chapter. Not really too much else to say about it, but a decent chapter of Witch Watch for sure. And hey, that is 16 chapters that I sat down and talked about. I've been recording for 54 minutes so far. I don't know how much of that I've had to cut out, but either way, I am ready to sit down and now rank all of these series from what I thought was the best series of the week to what I thought was the worst series of the week. And honestly, we're going to be starting off on the bottom because Nice, Prison Prison is definitely going on the bottom. I did not like this first chapter of this series. I did not find any fun in it, and that's pretty much simple as that. As I said, I didn't particularly care for Star of Beetho, Beethoven, so we're going to put it right there. We're going to throw a Sid Craft, Love is a Mystery above it, followed by a, Astro Royale for the final time, and a Witch Watch right above that, rounding out the bottom 5 series, right? From here, I think I'm going to be putting the Elusive Samurai on the bottom, so just grab it and copy it over, because I always have a tough time spelling that one on videos. We'll then put 1 Piece, and then let's figure out where we're going to go from there, starting with the top of the list. Each of which, Kagurabachi and Embers, were all chapters I loved. Honestly, I'm going to put Embers first, because I just thought that chapter was absolutely amazing and awesome. Oh gosh, I'm really torn about what to put next. Kagurabachi was extremely hype, along with each of which. I think I'm going to put Kagurabachi next, followed up by an Ulti X-Ro Kiyoshi. And then, if I can spell Kyoshi real quick, please. Then we'll follow up with an Ichi the Witch. I definitely like that ranking right there for the top 4. We've got to put Blue Box next. Just a crazy good chapter. Honestly, Kill Blue, I thought it was just really funny. Ruri, Dragon. Then we have Himatin and Akane Banashi. We'll put Akane Banashi right above Himatin, leaving us, if I can type in real quick, with the final list of, starting at the top, we have Embers, Kagurabachi, Ultimate XS Kyoshi, each of which Blue Box, Kill Blue, Ruri Dragon, Akane Banashi, Himatin, One Piece, The Elusive Samurai, Witch Watch, Astro Royale, Sid Craft, Love is a Mystery, Star of Beethoven, and Nice Prison. And yeah, that is all of the ranking here, and I almost forgot who is my character of the week. It's got to be Sosuke from Ultimate XS Kyoshi. I don't even think I spelled Kyoshi right. Let me rectify that right. Now he spelled Kyoshi right, but how do I spell this? Sosuke. Yeah, that's how I spell it. Sosuke from Ultimate XS Kyoshi. He had just a really awesome showing this week, and hey, what can I say? We had a lot of really good chapters in manga this week, so I'm not complaining at all. Again, Embers was just strictly good. Kagurabachi was amazing also. Ultimate XS Kyoshi, each of which in Blue Box. Honestly, going back to that chapter, I'm going to put Blue Box right above each of which. We're going to make these, like, very small, minimal things real quick. We're going to switch it like that. So, did I do it? All right. So now we have Blue Box 4th, each of which 5th. I thought they were both good chapters, but Blue Box was just so amazing and good, right? But yeah, Astro Royale finally over. It's a little bit of a weird thing to like come through and do all of that, but really, I don't feel like rambling about any more of these series anymore. How much time do I have left to get this video under an hour in recording time? I have 2 minutes, which means that that's all of the time I have for this video, right? So pretty much thank you guys so very much for watching this video on a Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 21 of 2025. If you did enjoy this video, I cover plenty of other Weekly Shonen Jump issues. I've covered all of them for the year of 2025, so go check out all of those videos. There will be a playlist in the description box down below and an end card on this video. And also, this series goes up as a podcast on podcasting platforms. Just type in, hey, let's talk about Weekly Shonen Jump, and you should be able to find the show up on all those podcasting platforms. And if you can't, well, let me know and I'll try to get it up there pretty much, because I want to be able to have people listen to this podcast wherever they completely feel like it. And what was the other thing I was going to say? Yes, if you're listening to this on podcasting platforms, I have a YouTube channel. Go check out at Glowplasma, right? But yeah, follow that out of the way. Thank you guys so very much for watching this video on Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 21 of 2025. Again, good issue Jump, but like I wish I didn't have 16 series this week, but in those 16 series, we had some absolutely amazing ones. Guys, go make sure Embers continues. I need this to continue. If this series ends, I will be crying myself to sleep tonight. But either way, thank you guys so very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time for Weekly Shonen Jump combined issue number 22-23 of 2025. I'll catch you guys then. This is Glowplasma 231, signing out.